Good evening, everybody. The Music Fan is here with 10% luck, 20% skill, 15% concentrated power of will, 5% pleasure, and 50% pain, and 100% reason to remember the name. Now, if you don't understand that reference, you will tonight, because I am doing a special bonus week of digging through discography with Linkin Park. When I think of Linkin Park, I also think of this particular album, and I can't necessarily separate the two, so I thought it would be a good time to do one more video before I start my next project as we look at Fort Minor's only album, The Rising Tide. Now, if you don't know who Fort Minor is, you actually do. It is the stage name of Mike Shinoda in this particular project. After the success of Hybrid Theory, Reanimation, Meteora, and Collision Course, working with Jay-Z, he developed a budding friendship with Jay-Z and wanted to do a side project. Now, he had already worked before with a couple of his friends, Ryan Patrick Magan, or Ryu, and Takbir Bashir Talk. He had performed with them at points, and those two were from an underground hip-hop group called Styles of Beyond. In 2005, he started working on a mixtape called Fort Minor, We Major, where he developed the name Fort Minor and worked with Styles of Beyond and also DJ Green Lantern to promote an upcoming studio album, which he started talking about on March 4th, 2005, in an interview with MTV, that he was working on a solo hip-hop album where he would play every instrument and would produce the album along with Delson from Linkin Park and Jay-Z as the executive producer. The album was recorded at Energy Recording Studios and the Stockroom in North Hollywood, California, and it had 4 singles. Petrified on October 4th, 2005. Remember the Name also dropped October 4th, 2005. Believe Me, November 15th, 2005. And Where Did You Go on April 10th, 2006. And the album was released on November 22nd, 2005. So he told fans that this was going to be not as rock influenced, but more hip-hop influenced. And you can definitely see it. I remember all these songs being big at the time, and I remember listening to them through Yahoo and other sources and really liking all of them, but I never had listened to the whole entire album until now. So going through this album, here's what I think about it. What first stands out to me on this album is the lyrical content. It's not your run-the-mill rap songs talking about money or drugs or women. It's a lot of interesting songs. From the get-go, you get a song like Remember the Name, where it's talking about the preparation into working hard in order to become successful in the rap game or anywhere in general. A song like Right Now, where it's looking at a city and watching the different perspectives and the different lives of people around it while you are only a bystander in this, and not knowing the full picture, where someone's working hard but then their roommate is coughing up blood, or someone is in a home not having any heat and not having a bed, but they're happy that they at least have a home because they could be out on the streets like somebody else. It's an interesting song talking about different perspectives, and I think it's another really cool one. Feel Like Home is talking about different low points that people are going through in their lives. Where'd You Go is talking about a wife or a significant other missing their partner while they're on the road performing, and about all the hate and that they feel that they're away from them, and struggling with the fact that if they should stay together or not. Back Home is talking about all the rappers' home lives and the cities that they grew up in, and how they shaped them. Cigarettes is talking about the way that rappers lie about their lives, kind of like how cigarette companies lie about the health ramifications of cigarettes in order to make it look cool. Get Me Gone is a little interlude about the beginnings of Linkin Park and how the producers wanted Shinoda not to rap but actually play keyboard, and how afterwards, when Linkin Park became successful, they tried to steal the credit for their success. High Road is one of these where it is actually talking about fighting back against the haters and saying that they won't change. Kind of like Petrified, where the haters are attacking Shinoda and being like, step back, you're going to be petrified by us and our group. Black is talking about a troubling family situation leading to divorce and then gambling issues and alcohol issues. And Slip Out the Back is about a kid's perspective on life and telling Shinoda, like, you don't always have to be the hero. You can slip out the back and see how people actually treat you, because that's when people show their true colors. A lot of really interesting songs. There are, of course, a couple of mediocre ones in terms of lyrics. Not that they're mediocre, but it doesn't really do anything different. Believe Me being a song about a relationship that's falling apart and getting out before it ends. It's not groundbreaking, but it's still a good song. And In Stereo probably has some of the worst lyrics on here. It is a song about debuting a song to the masses in order to get the attention and see how people like it, and the way that they do is by going to a street or something like that and blasting the stereo so that people can hear it. Again, not hugely interesting. Also Petrified and High Road, again, not the most innovative of ideas, but I feel like there's a lot of really, really thought-provoking songs on here. Songs like Red to Black, Right Now, and Feel Like Home, and Back Home, all of them have these very thought-provoking ideas. And I think where a lot of that similarity comes from is those are most of the songs where Styles of Beyond are also collabing on these songs. So it's Remember the Name, Right Now, Feel Like Home, Back Home, Believe Me, and Red to Black, where Styles of Beyond collab on the song as well. And the cool vibe that I get from this is it feels like a lot of the times they have a conversation with each other, kind of like how A Tribe Called Quest raps, where it feels like it's very much conversational and they're keeping an idea going, not like a cypher where you have a lot of different rappers rapping about their own stuff and not having it connect, or like certain rap songs where people collab and it's disjuncted in the ideas. And I think that's really cool that they keep a conversation going and it keeps this topic very interesting and very lively, and it shows the differences in styles that everybody has. And there's also some other really, really great artists that contribute on this album. You have Black Thought from The Roots on Right Now, who has an awesome verse on that song. You have Holly Brooke Haferman, which you guys might know as Skylar Grey, and also Jonah Montranga singing on Where'd You Go. You have Common on Back Home. You have Eric Bobo from Cypress Hill and also BC Boys on Believe Me. You have John Legend singing on High Road, and he sounds awesome. You have Kenna and Jonah Montranga again on Red to Black. You have Self-Titled on this 30-second interlude called The Battle, where he's battling with somebody, but it feels weird and it doesn't really add much to the record. And then you have Joe Hahn from Linkin Park on Slip Out the Back. And you also have a little intro where Jay-Z is talking about the album. A lot of really good star power, and a lot of them bring a lot to the songs that they're in. So from the get-go, you have a lot of really good lyrics and a lot of really good people on this album. I will say the music varies, though, in terms of quality. You have a lot of really good songs with interesting music, and when that happens, they're some of the best songs on the album. Right Now, having some beautiful chord progressions and some interesting electronics, but also some nice keyboard parts as well, which makes it sound melancholy and fits the mood very well. Petrified has these very eerie strings and electronics, and it makes for a petrifying sound. A song like Believe Me has some great music on there as well, where it has an interesting chord progression going from C minor, B flat, and then half step down to A flat, and G, and has some awesome strings. There's a rubato piano beginning. The melody is interesting, the harmonies are interesting. There's some really good drum beats in there, and even a hand drum solo in the middle of the song. It has some of the best music on there. High Road is another one that has some great layering in terms of piano work, and there's these very staccato piano chords, and then they layer in some more offbeat, lower chord work from the piano, some great drums. Again, John Legend's melody and harmonies on there add a lot to the song to make it very interesting. But then on the flip side, you have a song like Red to Black, where it's more Linkin Park-esque, very distorted guitars, and some interesting layering in terms of the guitar work there, making it for a much darker sound, where the singing on there isn't as beautiful, but it's interesting, and the harmonies are good too. The only thing I just wish it was a little bit longer, because it's one of my favorites on there. I love the flow from the group on there. It's one of the better ones in terms of that idea, because it's a little bit different from everything else. Those are where it shines as the best stuff, where it's the interesting lyrics and the interesting chord progressions. Now, I will say that there are sometimes the music isn't as interesting, but the lyrics make up for that. So Slip Out the Back is one of those where it's very dark-ish, and it does have these Linkin Park tinges to it, but it's not as interesting comparatively to everything else. But the lyrics themselves make up for that. Cigarettes, again, it's dark, but it isn't the most interesting. It's just a very slowed down beat, and it just feels different than everything else. But it's also a different change of pace, which also makes it an interesting song comparatively. Back Home has some interesting drum beats, and it kind of feels like it's the song that Jay-Z would have rapped over in terms of like the early 2000s style for Jay-Z. I definitely hear that touch to it. Not the most interesting, but again, the lyrics make up for it. Where'd You Go? Another one where it's some interesting music, but I think it's kind of a little bit cheesy in terms of the styling, and it kind of reminds me of a worse Like Toy Soldiers, but I like the concept. Everything, it keeps coming back to that. Feels Like Home, a very uninteresting arrangement, but the concept works. Also, Remember the Name. Maybe not the most interesting arrangement, it's just a bunch of strings. It does have a lot of good stuff, and it's on the better side of these arrangements, but it does become repetitive. There's a little bit of difference in the chorus, but not enough to make up for the lack of innovative ideas throughout the song. The only time where I would say it doesn't work is in stereo. I think the arrangements blah, and I think the lyrics don't help that. If you took that one out, this would have been an incredible album, and it still is. I just think that is the weak part. The intro doesn't really bring much to the table. The battle is one that you can throw away, and Get Me Gone has a pretty interesting arrangement. It kind of reminds me of early Linkin Park as well, but it just doesn't stay long enough. Now, you might be wondering that I haven't talked about one particular song, and this is where I wanted to bring up the idea of, like I said, when the music is bad or uninteresting, the lyrics still make up for the most part. When the music is great, it's some amazing songs. And when the music is incredible and the lyrics are incredible, you get Kenji. Kenji is one of the more fascinating songs I've heard in the rap game for a very long time. Kenji is a song about Mike Shinoda's parents and grandparents, especially during the time of World War II, when Japanese were in internment camps in America, and it takes through a story of his grandparents. It's a fascinating song. It's a fascinating story. It's really deep. It's really personal, and I love the idea of it. And what makes it much more interesting is the music around it. The guitar part isn't amazing, but it keeps the tone very well. And then there's another guitar part that adds in later, which makes the layering better. And then the idea that he's rapping these ideas over 14 beats. So the idea is he's doing 3.5 measures in common time. So there's always a part where 2 beats are left behind. I'm not usually used to that type of idea in terms of the structure of the verses, and I really like it. But the part that's also very interesting is out of all these, there is no chorus. And instead of the chorus, it brings in testimony and stories from what I would imagine is Shinoda's family, or it might be other Japanese people that he knows that themselves were a part of this or their relatives were a part of this. And it makes for an amazing song and a highlight of this album. Before I even listened to this album, my favorites were Believe Me, I love Petrified, I love the cheesiness of Remember the Name, but I came here and I found a couple of new ones that I really, really like. Kenji, Red to Black. Right now, all these are really interesting songs, and there isn't really a low moment other than In Stereo on this album. The flow of Shinoda is really good over this album, even though I will say that sometimes it feels like he's using the same flow over and over again, but the stories themselves and the lyrical content make up for that repetition in sound. And there are times like Red to Black, like Cigarettes, where the style changes up and he shows that he can do it. But also, he has a lot of great people on here to add depth to this, like John Legend, like Common, like Black Thought, like Styles of Beyond. All these people bring so much to the table, and it makes for a fantastic hip-hop album. If you've never listened to this album in full, definitely do so. The fact that this is in 2005, the fact that this is 13 years old, it still has some very poignant ideas. The fact that in Cigarettes he's calling out the misogyny of the rap game, which is still a problem in 2018, it shows that this is an album that has stood the test of time and ideas. And I would definitely recommend this to anybody who is a Linkin Park fan and has liked Shinoda's raps. If you've ever wanted a full album of Shinoda raps, here you go. And it's interesting because even though this was an amazing album, it only charted and peaked at number 51 on the Billboard Hot 200, and it was only because of the success of Where'd You Go. Honestly, to me, the worst single on the album, but it peaked at number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100. It might be because of the video, but it's funny how, to me, one of the worst songs on the album is the one that made this CD so successful. And even though it only peaked at number 51, it has stood the test of time because it was certified platinum on June 21st, 2018, so not too long ago. I really like this album. I think it's a nice little part of the collection, if you will. Definitely take a look at it. But that is my time. So if you like this album, of course, give this video a like, comment on what you think about this album and thoughts about this album in general for you. Share this with your friends, subscribe to my channel, and most importantly, just keep watching my videos. So now, tomorrow, we are going to look into a new album by Mike Shinoda, and we'll see the compare and contrasts of Fort Minor, you know, where they had just finished their second album and were at the peak of Linkin Park, to now, where definitely troubling times, especially after the death of Chester Bennington. We'll see just how different this is. But until then, this is the Music Fan, signing off.